Okay, so this is the second time I'm shooting the video technically. Cause as you guys can see, I got a new camera and I recorded the whole video the other day. When I was trying to edit it, I realized everything was in slow motion and there was no audio. So I was an idiot, but it's okay. No, I just want to make it a little bit more, as I said before, I want to be more consistent with it. It's definitely a little bit different feeling having the actual camera in front of me instead of my S23. Well, I still have it on the side because I have to record the audio to it. For some reason, I still can't get it to work with the camera, the Sony ZV-E10, whatever it's called. But anyway, I just want to talk about two things. You know, I was mixing and I looked at my plugin list. And I was like, man, I really have a lot of plugins. And then I opened my email and I see more promotions by this plugin, by that plugin, and this, that. So I just want to talk a little bit about the plugin. I don't know if I want to call it plugin addiction, because that's not quite what I think it is, but I just want to talk about how there's so many tools, there's so many different plugins, there's so many varieties of everything. And I'm not even trying to complain because, as I said, I have a lot of plugins. But at the same time, I'm like, I am tired of buying new plugins. And luckily, you know, within the network that we have, usually when I buy a plugin or somebody else buys a plugin, we like share it amongst each other because it comes with a, you know, 1-2 licenses. And again, it's like if it's not illegal, you know. I think it's not. Anyway, we pay for the plugins regardless, so it doesn't matter. But, you know, I just want to say that when I mix, I always use the same, I don't want to say always use the same set of plugins, because there's definitely plugins, you know, especially effect plugins that I use, you know, on very specific things if I want to use them. But, you know, most of the time is like, I would just break it down like this. And that's my own personal perspective and my own personal experience with everything that I'm saying right now. So, for example, right, one of the biggest things in my mixing I always wanted to improve was low end. And I always was like, low end needs to be tighter, low end needs to be this, low end needs to be that. And that was like, you know, that's, I guess when you work in a specific type of genre, especially hip hop, R&B, anything that needs that sub and, you know, sub bottom of the mix to really sit low and tight and big, I was always obsessed with having the low end sit in a certain way. And recently, you know, past some time, I feel like I'm sitting in the place where I really love how it sounds. I think this is the first time in my life when I listen to it and I'm like, yes, this is what I was aiming for my whole life, to make low end sound. Not even sound, make it feel to me a certain way. And again, I'm speaking at a different perspective of how I like to hear stuff. Just for comparison, when I was listening to Drake's and Party's project, and you know, I always listen to things and I listen to it from a technical perspective and how it feels and all that stuff, obviously music and stuff, but number one thing that I guess got into my attention was how the low end sounded on that project. I wasn't necessarily a fan, but again, I'm not saying, look, everybody got a different way of working, mixing and all that stuff, so that's all subjective, right? But when I was listening to the low end, it just didn't sound the way how I imagined the perfect low end sounding in my head. So I was like, interesting, right? So I kind of went back and I started thinking about just, you know, certain things, how I hear stuff, how I like to hear stuff that I do. I'm going a little bit around the block with it, but basically what I want to say about having too many plugins and you know, constantly chasing new things and new plugins and this and that. So okay, I want to base this conversation around I wouldn't say one specific plugin, but I'm gonna mention that as my, I wouldn't even call it a secret because it's not a secret. This one particular plugin, it is part of the reason why the low end that I have sounds the way how I like it to be. And that one plugin is R-Bass from Waves. And R-Bass been around for 20 years plus, maybe even more. I'm not sure when exactly it was released, but I don't even know if they, you know, changed the algorithm in any way from the OG to what it is right now. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I've been using R-Bass forever. It's been part of my mix forever, right? But just recently I was able to get stuff sound in a certain way and I still used exactly the same plugins. I didn't add anything, I didn't change anything. It's exactly the same combination of plugins that I've been using. But for some, not even for some reason, because I know what the reason for it is, but I was able to get certain things feel in a certain way because I kept tweaking and understanding and hearing what and understanding what I'm hearing to understand what I'm hearing in the response of a low end, if that makes sense. I've tried a couple of plugins that are specifically to, you know, to, I guess, specific plugins to low end. I don't remember the names. I would have to check them out. And some of the plugins I bought, some of the plugins I was blessed with the extra license. And I tried those plugins, and every single time I would try something new, I would still go back using the RBass. It's one of the plugins was I think it's Slade Digital Infinite Bass. I believe that's what it's called. I might be wrong, I might be right, but I have a subscription, so it was added a couple of months ago, and I've tried it, I played with it. It had different texture, different things, which is cool. But RBass just has what I always wanted and I always liked. So my combination is, I would say, like, it's not only RBass, but when it comes to the bass stuff, when it comes to the sub, bass, and all those frequencies, like anything that sits more in the mids, low mids, and bottom, I only use really 3 plugins. Well, 4. So it would be RBass. That's always number 1 because I love the way how it rounds everything up. It just always works. Obviously, you gotta be careful with it, not to dial too much, but RBass always works. Then after RBass, sometimes before, sometimes after, it depends on how things sound, I would use the SSL X2 EQ just for some corrective stuff. And then on my low-end bus, I would have the Submarine, also from Waves. I just use like literally 2-3% of that, just a tiny little bit to give it a little bit more air, like a little bit more wobble and air coming from the low end. And then I would close it with the maximizer from Ozone. Like, this is literally the combination, those 4 plugins that I've always been using. And I've been doing that for years, and like sometimes when I compare my alt mixes, I'm like, low end doesn't sound that and that, like it sounds good for what it was at the time, but it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. So right now, in this room, I got a sub, I got, it's the way how I hear stuff and how I listen to things is a little bit different, a little bit different experience. I wouldn't say experience, it's a little bit different thing for me because, I've mixed plenty of records and I know exactly what I like to hear. I know exactly what I want to hear, as I said before. But to achieve my whole point of everything that I'm saying, to achieve what I always wanted to achieve, it didn't really take any new plugins to add to what I already had. It took me to understand what frequencies I want to pop and how I want the frequencies to resonate in my mixes. And again, sometimes we spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on plugins, and there's definitely plugins that I've bought, I spend whatever, sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 100, sometimes 150, like, depends on the plugin, right? But there's definitely plugins that I've spent because I was like, I need a new EQ, I need a new this, I need a new that, I need a new reverb, I need the new whatever it's gonna be, but I get all those things just to go back to the things that I've been using before, because it's not even about that I'm used to using what I've had from time. It's just there's so many things that you can discover with the tools that you already have. You don't really need to get another new tool you're gonna learn new things from getting new tools 100%, but if you're gonna learn something from the very bottom to the very top, and every single combination, every little secret about it, you will be able to control things much more than just adding another thing to your to your plugin list. That's just my quick opinion and my observation, just by what I've been doing and what I've been using, what I've been used to doing. So yeah, I just want to say it real quick. It's not always about getting new plugins, and I think nowadays it's all about, everything just feels like a market. You open an email, sale going on, plug-in 99% off, 70% off, buy it today, buy it tomorrow. I think Waves are, I'm not even trying to diss Waves because I use Waves a lot, and I think even going back to a couple of years ago, I remember when I had everybody were using Waves, and then kind of UAD started taking over, and there was this perception, I guess, that UAD is so much better than Waves, and everything sounds so much better, it sounds so much analog, all that stuff, right? But then as we grow a little bit older and we just kind of look at everything, we like, what? Everything is just a tool. Can I mix things without my favorite tools? Yes, I can. Would it sound the way how I want it to sound? Maybe not as quiet, or maybe it would be missing certain things that I appreciate about my own mixes. But I would still be able to make it work regardless, right? Because it's just like, what I hear is I'm trying to match the tools that I have in front of me to translate what I'm hearing in my head. I mean, I've mixed stuff, when I'm doing live sound and all that. Sometimes, I've mixed up on Mackie boards. Does it sound great? I mean, it's not the greatest, but I'm still able to rebalance things. I'm still able to do things the way how I hear them in my head. So again, I'm known from going back and forth because I like to talk a lot about, especially when I'm passionate about stuff. But going back to just buying more plugins and stuff, checking your email and having all those promotions, this and that. Don't really get fooled by that because again, I've done it many times. I bought a whole bunch of plugins and past couple of weeks, I'm just tired of seeing new plugins because I'm like, there's a new thing, new that. I guess okay. In the past couple of months, there was 2 plugins that I was really excited about. And the funny thing is that those are exactly the same. Those are not the same plugins. Those are the plugins that emulate the same thing, but they sound different. So it was the SPL Machine Head. So the first time when they announced was Metric Halo that did it, and they released it. So we got that, we split it, we got the license for Metric Halo Machine Head. And I was like, it's dope, this and that. I put it on my Master Buzz, I played with it, this, that. And I was like, yeah, it's cool, like, it's useful. I'm not going to use it in everything, but it's definitely, it has a space in certain records. And then Plugin Alliance, SPL specifically, they were like, we got the real one. This is coded with the real code from the real machine. Basically dissing Metric Halo a little bit, that they tried to recreate something, from their own pool of hardware. So Plugin Alliance dropped it. And that came with the Plugin Alliance bundle, which I have. I just have a yearly subscription, so all the plugins they have, just added to the thing. And, I've compared them side by side. And they do the same thing. They don't sound the same. They are a little bit different. There's definitely differences in the low end tightness and all that stuff. I personally prefer the SPL version from Plugin Alliance. Not that Metric Halo is bad in any way, but Plugin Alliance just seemed to get certain things a little bit tighter, or I would even say tighter. It's just something that touches me more when it comes to my personal preference of the sound. Where I feel like Metric Halo, as good as it is, it just didn't have certain tightness, especially in the low end, that I wanted to have. But again, just comparing it side by side before the Plugin Alliance came out with their thing, I was perfectly fine with the Metric Halo until the new one came out, and I was like, okay, I was able to compare them side by side, right? But again, spend money on one. Luckily, the other one came with a subscription. I'm barely using Metric Halo right now. I'm using the one that came with a subscription. I might use the other one every now and then, maybe on specific things. But, just the case that I'm trying to make is that there are plugins that do same things a little bit different, but regardless, you'll be able to make it work because it really comes down to just the way how you want to hear stuff. There's hundreds of different EQs, hundreds of different compressors, hundreds of different reverbs, and everybody use Valhalla anyway. It's like, look, Valhalla is the sound of this generation, however you want to call it, and it's a $50 plugin. Like, you can't go wrong with Valhalla. And I have Bricasti right here. I got a hardware unit Bricasti. I have a Seventh Heaven Bricasti as well. And I compare it side by side, Bricasti, which is, I think is like $45,000 or $5,000 reverb. I don't know how much it is right now. I bought it a couple of years ago for like $4,000. And at the time, I thought it was a good deal, but I was also spending money like crazy because whatever, man. Any regrets? No regrets. However, when I compare the Bricasti and Seventh Heaven, which are one to one, they have exactly the same presets. You open Bricasti, you open Seventh Heaven, you match them side by side. They go with exactly the same presets. It's exactly the same thing. Is there a difference? 100%. For me, it matters because all the little nuances that I hear in the top end, they matter to me. But is there a reason of spending, $4,000 on a reverb where you can get it for $300 and still have the same character and still have the same texture somewhat and make it usable? I would say like this: most likely, highly likely, the artist is not gonna care. They're not gonna care what you use, how you use. They're just gonna care about how it sounds. I feel like for me as I love engineering. I love the little 1-2s, and I feel like we got to the point where the hardware, it only really gives you small percentage that is big in the long run, because there's definitely differences in how it feels, how it sounds. A lot of people are going in the box, which is fine. I'm probably never gonna go only in the box because I just love the geek side of things. I have all the equipment. I'm probably going to be buying equipment simply because I appreciate the extra couple percent that it comes with it. However, I wouldn't, if somebody you don't have to, slave yourself at work and stuff to just to buy, whatever you want to buy. However, I'm not even gonna say that I wouldn't like. I'm not gonna say I don't recommend it. It's just you can probably, especially in the beginning, put a little bit more thought into different things. That is not the equipment that makes you. It's it's how you make the equipment to sound. Going back to my main point when it comes to everything that we have, plugins and all. I think it's kind of time to take a step back. I'm pretty sure each one of us, or a majority of people, like, we all have the same tools. Realistically, everybody use the same tools. Or 80%, 70 to 80% of tools we probably share. Some stuff like Waves, Plugin Alliance, Slate Digital, and then obviously stock plugins and Pro Tools or Ableton and all that stuff. I feel like the market got so saturated with the tools, and it almost took away some of the joy. I remember 10, 15 years ago when I was buying plugins, it was like, oh man, this is cool, there was like, and I still use the plugins that I bought, 10, 15 years ago, which is insane. But like those tools, I still use them, I still have them. But I feel like back then buying tools was very different than buying tools right now. Right now it just feels like everything is just, being pumped in our faces, and just, buy new tool, new plugin, new something, get one, get 10 extra free, get a discount and this and that, which I think there's something that is being taken away from the beauty of music. And, I've been noticing a lot of that stuff lately. Not only on the technical side, plugins and stuff, but it just feels like music itself, I don't want to say it's becoming cheap, because it's definitely not cheap. It's, it takes time. There's like something that is being taken away. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. Maybe you guys can tell me what I'm feeling. I can't say exactly what it is, but there's something that's being taken away from the art of it and is being replaced by something that doesn't quite feel right, if that makes sense. So that's my little thing about the plugins, and I just gave a little example with the Rbase. Shout out to Waves. I feel like Waves plugins, been around forever. We've all used them. We all love them. I think Rbase is one of my favorite Waves plugins. There's definitely a couple of other ones, but Rbase, I use it on every single mix on the low end, obviously in a very small amounts, because I don't want it to, I don't want to overcook it, but it's definitely out there. And another thing I want to say real quick, this is something that I've recorded the other day, but as I said, my camera was recorded in slow motion, so I'm just gonna really make it short, because I don't want to make it too long. The importance of showing up. So basically, I said, and I'm gonna say it again. If you want to do something in life, whatever it is, it doesn't only apply to music, it applies to everything. You have to show up. Whether it's a gym, sports, music, being a doctor, being a lawyer, whatever you want to do, whatever your dream is, whatever you want to achieve, even when you don't feel like it, you have to show up. Just a quick example, I was talking to one of my friends recently, and he basically said how he got fired. I don't want to get into too much of the details, but there was a period of time when he was working a corporate job that he didn't do a lot, like he didn't do much music. He said that he was just burnt out, he wasn't inspired, and he wasn't really in the mood to cook. And I get it, especially regular jobs can definitely burn you and stuff, but I feel like whatever you do in life, you gotta look at it from a bigger perspective, and you gotta have a little bit different point of view when you work. Because if you want to get something, you have to do whatever you have to do to be where you want to be. So even if you work 9 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever the time schedule is, you always have to show up for whatever you want to do after, There's always, saying that somebody doesn't have time to do things, I think is bullshit, because if you finish something, you go home, there's always X amount of time that you have left. It's just how you gonna spend that time, and what you gonna, how you gonna utilize that time. Is my example when I was, back in the day when I was younger, before I had studios, before I was doing all that stuff, I was working construction just to get some money. But the money was good at the time that I was getting, and I was working 6 days a week, sometimes 7, usually 6. But the hours were 8, sometimes 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever the case was. But I was doing what I was doing with only one thought in my head. When I was carrying windows to the 4th floor and doing this and that and all the stuff that I was doing, I was like, I need to finish it so I can go back and, you know, mix or produce or do something. Like, I had the completely different objective in my mind, and what I was doing here was there just to make some money. And obviously all the money that I was making at the time, I was literally just spending back into buying equipment and just, you know, bettering myself, and putting myself in the position where I am today. So yeah, I just want to say that whatever you do, you always got to show up, you know, every day, 2-3 hours a day. Even if it's a 1 hour a day, I guarantee you can find 1 hour a day. Just spend less time doing nonsense, or, you know, hurry up getting to home or something. There's always time when you can kind of squeeze out to gain doing something else. And I think that that's a very important thing. Without that type of mentality and that type of quality, it's going to be really hard for anyone to pursue whatever road, whatever way in life you want to pursue. But anyway, that's basically it for now. I'm getting into a groove, you know, when it comes to videos. I know I gotta post a little bit more. I guess I didn't realize it last time. The camera just shut off. I guess maybe there's like a X amount of time that it records. But again, new camera. I'm trying to figure these things out. But anyway, everything I said, Slice. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe. Hopefully you enjoy, and I'm gonna make more videos soon. I'm doing it quick because something is wrong with the camera. I don't know what's going on. Anyway.